Right, welcome, and it is an absolute pleasure, so thank you to Tom for inviting me. So first of all, it'd be really remiss of me not to mention International Women's Day. I know it was yesterday, so forgive me, but being the only woman really that's presented, thanks Tom, I just wanted to say, and to recognise all the wonderful women in this audience, so let's give yourselves a big round of applause. I think it's quite interesting. I've worked in the industry sector for donkey's years in manufacturing, so I'm kind of used to being the only woman, but I'd like a commitment from everybody here today in that when we now have the next SMI event, we at least double the amount of women that we have in the audience. So that's a commitment I'd like from everybody, please. I can help you. I've worked in HR, I've done diversity projects, so not that I'm trying to come away from power electronics, machines and drives, but happy to help. So I'm going to take you through Driving the Electric Revolution Industrialisation Centres. Wow. We call it DERIC for short, as you can probably appreciate, it's much easier. We look at power electronics, machines and drives. So it's, if you think of marine or maritime, it's a very small element, but a really critical element to support electrification. And I think today, I've been educated massively, by the way, over the last few hours and also yesterday. And today, I hope I give you 20 minutes of educating you a little bit on what we do as well. So let me take you through. So we cover multiple sectors. I am really investing a lot of time in the maritime sector, mainly because I believe that you have such a complex range of issues and challenges, and I really want to help and support what you do. Yesterday was brilliant. In fact, I'm just going to look at my notes here. Apologies, I'm not looking at Facebook, I promise. And when I look through, some of the sort of shout-outs for help, I think, really, is what I kind of got yesterday, was we need more boats. We need more boats that basically are going to help in supply chain. So developing supply chain, more collaboration as well was absolutely critical. The commitment, the focus on efficiencies in supply chain, and coming up with, I suppose, supporting the demands as well that are in these areas. Looking at our home market, which is what we're about, really supporting what the UK are trying to do. Diversify, that was mentioned, and also looking at how we can support companies through funding streams. I was really pleased yesterday because that's kind of what I'm trying to do. So I'm hoping I give you some enlightenment. So anyway, these sectors that we're in, I'm just going to tell a story that I told some of the wonderful people that I met last night at the dinner, which was rather lovely, that joint of meat that I had on my plate. But travelling yesterday, so I've got 2 young children who are 6 and 7, and all they talk about is engineering and electrification. I have no idea why. But I'm in my electric car, of course, going to school, and they say, "Mummy, why are you going away again?" And I say, "Well, Mummy's got to work so I can get lots of Christmas presents for you and birthday presents for you." And they go, "Great, so what are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to go and talk about boats." They were like, "Great, does that mean we're going to get a free electric boat for Christmas?" And I said, "Yes, of course, I'll make a request. So if you want to come and see me afterwards and please my 6 and 7-year-olds, you know, I've got to stand over there." But it's really interesting talking to children in electrification, and I'll come on to a very slither of that later on. But in essence, I cover all these sectors. And this is kind of no surprise, by the way. I mean, you know, you all know around sort of marine transport targets. We've been talking about that today. But everybody has these targets. And what I'm wanting to do is kind of link those sectors together. You know, I've worked predominantly in automotive. That's way simpler than maritime. But actually, some of the technologies, you know, I think somebody mentioned about the Leaf. You know, 2013, the Leaf was being sold to the market. You know, they've been doing electrification for a long time. There's a lot of things we can learn from that. And equally in rail, the synergies that exist between rail and maritime as well. There's an awful lot that we can learn from each other. And in essence, what we're doing is we've managed to get some funding from UKRI, so thank you very much. So in 2018, October 2018, the government, so Innovate UK, formed what they called Driving the Electric Revolution Challenge and put 80 million into electrification, which by the way, we probably need about a couple of billion, but you've got to start somewhere. You know, that's what government do. Prove it, and then we get more money. So we're waiting for the CSR and hopefully get some more money out of government. Out of the 80 million, the centres funding was 33. So we had 33 million to bid into. So no different to probably you guys here. We're bidding into government money to try and do something useful for the UK. And we won the money, which was great, yay. And that money was used to effectively buy equipment that industry could use that didn't exist in the UK. And this is to support manufacturing process. I'll talk a little bit more about what the specifics were of that. And this is open access facility, so it's available for everybody. There was also some funding calls as well, which unfortunately have nothing to do with me, and I didn't have the deep pockets. But what I'm trying to explain here is around how we helped industry create those collaborative projects. So there was 37 million split between 3 different funding streams over the last 2 years. And the numbers you see there, the 13 projects, the 21, they were actually projects that the centres and its network helped companies win those projects. So these companies are led by, these projects are led by industry. They're not led by academic institutions or research technology organisations. And then we come on to the skills bit, which is really important. So as much as the centres were set up to buy state-of-the-art equipment, you can't forget the issues that we have in skills. Everybody I speak to is saying, I need an engineer. Where can I get an engineer from? I wish I could magic them up. But there's something like, in the UK, well actually I'll do it regionally, so 1,300 shortage of engineers every year in this region alone. I only need 2, by the way, if anybody's interested. But it's a serious issue, and what we're trying to do with the skills activity is support people who are bidding in, because we've got a lot of academic institutions in our network, to fulfill the requirements that industry need quickly, so be more flexible, etc. So we're currently waiting for those bids, but that's a really useful amount of money to help deliver on these current issues. So what do the centres do? So out of the 33 million, we needed a bit of money for back office and things, but there was 28.5 million pounds worth of funding for equipment. And they belong in the 4, well, there's 7 centres, I'll talk about that later. And that's around developing manufacturing capabilities. So it's accelerating, de-risking, allowing people to prototype, develop, improve efficiencies, and effectively de-risk their production plans. Not every company has the ability to just have an assembly line sat somewhere in the corner of their manufacturing facility, used twice a year. So this is investment that we did, and the rationale for that investment is that we recognise companies were going outside of the UK to get their testing done, and it could be Spain or Germany, etc. And as a result of that, the UK was actually losing manufacturing capability. And in fact, we've recently lost one in the northeast. Not only because of that, multiple factors, but equally a lot of it goes down to that. So we're trying to build back that whole manufacturing piece across the supply chain, across benefiting all sectors. We have a 10-year vision, and that is to make the UK globally recognised as a centre of excellence for power electronics, machines and drives, or PEMD. And it's in manufacturing process. And our mission, should you wish to take it on, is to provide a UK network of open access facilities to grow world-class design, manufacturing, and test and validation capabilities. And yesterday was quite interesting when we talk about certification and all the other legalities. You know, we work in partnership with those organisations to make sure companies who want to get into the sector have the appropriate machines, etc., that can go into maritime. So, our network partners. In red, you will see that they're the main centres. So it doesn't matter which centre you go to, you'll kind of get the same voice, which is, how can I help you? What's your supply chain issue? What's your manufacturing issue? But all the partners that you see there, some of them are probably in this audience, some of them you're very familiar with. They have, in fact, Offshore Renewable are here. They have a capability, and we would signpost people to those capabilities. So somebody rang me and said, hey, I want to do something in renewables. I would obviously send them to the Offshore Renewable Catapult or any of the other relevant ones. So it's a bit of matchmaking. It's us having world-class equipment that allows people to manufacture and improve their manufacturing process. It enables us to kind of wrap our arms around industry, help them with bidding into funding streams, so like the Clean Maritime, for example. You know, working with us, we can help shape that, help signpost you to relevant supply chain partners. It also allows us, because of our regional stretch, you know, it is absolutely fully across the UK, it allows us to use regional funding as well, because we partner with the regional bodies. So, for example, in the North East LEP, the councils, and it's no different in any of the other part of the UK. But it's really to sort of leverage that, and that whole collaborative approach, which, as I said yesterday, was a real red thread through this, it is really what we're here to do. Okay, this is my lovely little graph for today. Not as cool as the ones that have just been run before me, but what we did before we actually got the money is I spent, 2 or 3 years working across all sectors, all different sizes of companies, to really understand where the gaps were. So if you look at the technology areas on the left-hand side in its crudest form, that's what we did. We sort of said, right, what's your issues around power electronics, et cetera, et cetera. So the full supply chain. So the top one is your power electronics, and the bottom is electrical machines. And what we recognise is if you look at high volume, so automotive, industrial, and you look at high value, which is clearly maritime, renewables, etc., it's very different, and there isn't a one-size-fits-all. So you can imagine it was a bit of a challenge when you've got £28.5 million to buy equipment that suits the requirements across all those sectors. It took us a while, but what we ended up with is really equipment that can be used for everybody. And the other interesting thing that we've done is we've created, from this sort of capability mapping that we've done, is we're creating a piece of software, and I will let you all know when it's in the public domain, but it's only about a month or two away. So this piece of software basically helps companies to upload their data. So it's a bit like a matchmaking site. It's like the Tinder for industry. I should rename it Tindustry, would that work? And effectively, you apply all of your capability information. So what you do, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in, whether you're academia, whether you're an RTO, and you apply that information in there along these strands here. And it goes into some sort of more, you know, the taxonomy goes into more granular detail. But it's a bit like then you go in, and it's a very focused Google. I can go in and I can search something very specific, whether it's renewables or whatever, and it will come up with the companies that I could approach that I might need support with. Now, clearly, if I was having this conversation in 6 years' time, that would be a pretty significant database that we've got there. But we're starting. So the idea is that I will send it out to all of you. You'll input your data, and you'll start to matchmake. Now, that doesn't erode, obviously, my job. Making myself redundant here, aren't I? But it allows that interaction much quicker rather than going, hi, Rach, can you help me with X? And the other thing that it does as well is it allows you to put in problems that you've got, and then people can start to chat and help you with your problems. And the great thing about this as well is it's totally cross-sector. I was at an event, I'm always at events. I was at an event last week called the Future Propulsion Conference in Birmingham, and I spoke to 3 companies, DC to DCs, system integration, you name it. And I was telling them I was coming here today, and they were saying, oh, well, we could probably help there, actually. You know, we could do a collaborative project. And so now I'm kind of like, my head's, you know, buzzing, thinking, this is great. You know, why don't we bring a bit of a collective together? So I'm hoping to host an event, I'm digressing slightly, but hoping to host an event in June time for the maritime sector, but bringing in other industries so we can start to really truly shape and help and support the sector. So, next level. So what did we do? Across the top there, you've got the power electronics supply chain in its crudest form, and the electrical machine. The bits in red, it's not to alarm you, it's just our branding colours, is where we put the equipment. So you can see we've really filled quite a lot of the supply chain gaps. The obvious ones that you see, PCB and components, we're never going to compete with North Korea and etc. So you're not going to see any fabs here and components here, but electrical steel as well is another one. It needs hundreds of millions, and we only had 28.5, so there was no point in us even looking at that. But again, we recognise there's a gap there, and we'll work closely with government to see what they can do and how they can support this. Right, this is not teaching grandma to suck eggs, by the way. I kind of purposely put this in here because when I came into the sector, I was like, power electronics, what does it mean? Like, what is it? So I'm going to simplify it for you. So power electronics is the electrical engineering focusing on high voltage and currents using semiconductor switches. So if you think of it in a practical sense in your home, you've got the conversion of AC out your wall socket into the DC, your TV, your computer. Don't kill me, I'm not an engineer, okay? Yeah, that's as much as I'm giving you today. But what you can see from that is that it's essential. You can't really do without power electronics. And it's deployed in pretty much most of the applications that you'll see around you, aero, rail, auto, etc. And it's really essential that we look at power electronics and support companies with that to meet these net zero targets. Now, one of the things actually was mentioned in the nuclear project, the nuclear presentation earlier was around silicon carbide. So typically silicon is used in the semiconductor. And what we can help with is actually looking at alternative materials like silicon carbide, gallium nitride, because actually it creates efficiencies. It actually is cost saving as well, and it's a better material. So we've got a cluster, typically in the sort of southwestern Wales, that look at that technology and can support companies in that conversion. So what is an electric machine? So an electric machine can be an electric generator, or it can be an electric motor. And if it's a motor, you can transfer electrical energy into mechanical energy, and equally the generator, mechanical into electrical. There's loads of different machine types. I've put a few here, thinking some of you may recognise them, some of you may not. But equally, there's a lot of technologies going into motors around non-magnetic materials as well. So as we talk about sustainability, in fact, there's a company in the Northeast, very well known for looking at its non-magnetic materials. And equally, we have a partner in our network who focuses on that and looks at the recycled element as well. So it goes a lot deeper into that technology. And what is an electrical drive? And it's kind of bugging it all together, really. So it's a system that has motor, power conversion, intelligence and control, and basically controls the speed, I suppose, of that. And also can help with the rotational part of the motor. So in summary, we will work with industry partners across that full supply chain for power electronics, machines and drives. And we will support where we can in the engagement, bringing collaboration together, and then developing, prototyping new processes and scale up. And this is kind of start the journey for us. I mean, you know, the hard work doesn't stop. You know, I'm going to be hopefully getting more funding from government, adding capability as we, you know, as I continue going around the country, understanding each sector much more deeply and understanding the gaps. It's really me working with regional or central government to get them to realise and understand where the gaps are, so we can start to really build this critical capability in the UK. I actually think we've got a bit of a USP, especially in this area, technology area. You know, what country do you know that links all the academic institutions, all the RTOs together, all of the industry together in kind of one place? It doesn't really happen. I mean, we have the beauty of being a little bit smaller, I suppose, than the US or Asia, but that actually is a huge USP for us. And if you can start to embed and really focus on that cross-sector, that's pretty powerful stuff. So, these are the locations. I don't know if you can actually read them or not. I'm going to whiz through, because I don't want to bore you with sort of the technology, but Newcastle University hosts the centre that I run in the North East, which is actually based in Sunderland. Not good if you're a football fan, I suppose, but hey, we're all friends here. We're going to have a power electronics assembly line and a flexible machine line, which will have stator, rotor assembly and testing. In Nottingham, they're looking at coil manufacturing and magnetic test characterisation. Warwick, power electronics reliability and failure analysis. In WMG, in the Midlands, they're looking at a winding centre of excellence focused on more hairpin winding, so it's probably more automotive, but we will have winding capability in the North East, so fear not. In Swansea, wide bandgap power electronic component industrial pilot line, so again, if you think of the materials around silicon carbide and gallium nitride. Prototyping ceramic and copper elements and sub-assemblies at the CSA catapult in Wales. In Birmingham, briefly touched on, they're looking at magnets and rare earth, recycled rare earth magnets. And in I nearly said I will go on, yeah. And at Strathclyde, I'm actually wanting to see what happens if I get a red card. It's like the naughty child in me. And at Strathclyde, they do what I call big stuff, so megawatt. So they obviously work with the maritime sector closely, and I think the synergy between what we do in the North East and Strathclyde is quite similar. We do a lot of stuff and then gets to megawatt scale, and we give it to the guys in Scotland. So you'd be pleased to know I finished. So get in touch. You know, we've got a little stand in the corner over there. But yeah, it's just here to help you really, guys. But thank you for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.